So while living on the road, Katie and I have three big things that we spend over 80% of our budget on. The first one is gas, because like it or not, we are traveling a whole ton of distance in a truck that just eats diesel at a rate of around 12 miles per gallon. I wish that we could make this cheaper, but as of right now, this is pretty unchangeable. The second thing that comprises a huge chunk of our budget is campgrounds. Because while Katie and I do camp 50% of our time using free roadside pullouts, forest roads, BLM sites, it can get pretty mentally exhausting. So we end up splurging about half the time on campgrounds. And lastly, the reason I am here today, food. The amount that Katie and I have spent on food and groceries on this trip has already blown me away. We easily spend over $1,000 a month, double what we would spend back home. But I want to extend the scope of this video a bit larger than that, because ever since I moved out of my parents' house to live on my own, I have been playing the game of trying to buy and consume good food at a cheap price. A game that if you haven't played yet, I'm sure you will. But this isn't just a boring budgeting video, because it's through playing this game that I believe I have made a lot of mistakes, created so many stories, and gained a ton of somewhat useful knowledge. So let me show you how to be broke better. Also, as a quick disclaimer, this is a guide for the brokies, the cheapos, the no-name brand enthusiasts. No hate or shame to those who want to spend a little bit of extra money on food that is nice. But in this video, we are nickel and diming it. And by no means am I the authority on saving money. But I do feel like after living in 5 different places over the last 3 years, 2 of them being month-plus long stints on the road, I have learned a thing or two about how to be a cheapskate when it comes to food. So, good food at a cheap price. That sounds like a perfect opportunity for a chart. But before I can really plot anything down, what makes food good? Well, it's a bit subjective and will vary from person to person, but for me, I am always looking for food that both tastes good and is good for me. Which I guess could have a chart of its own. But no, we are getting way into the weeds. You get where I'm coming from. Foods that are good for me end up being things like chicken, Greek yogurt, tuna, eggs, bananas, carrots, apples. But these foods' prices can vary a lot. So when I'm shopping for food, the best value foods for me fall above this value diagonal. And of the foods I've mentioned, tuna, eggs, and bananas absolutely kick ass for bang for buck value, as they are super cheap and I enjoy them a lot. But your chart can look however you want it to. I have heard that chickpeas have a lot of protein and are also super cheap, but I just personally hate the taste of them. But finding foods that you enjoy above this value line has been the key for me to save money while being broke. So 3 years ago today, I moved out to Vancouver, BC and began to live on my own. And as a broke college student, I had the will to be as cheap as I could, but I had very poor execution. When Katie and I moved in together and did our first grocery run, I shopped how my parents had shopped. I bought everything that we wanted in bulk, getting a 3-pack of hummus, 5 tubs of yogurt, a buy one get one loaf of bread, and so on. The grocery bill was insanely high, but hey, it would last a long time, right? This was me being stupid. Everyone and their uncle has heard of economies of scale and that buying in bigger quantities is cheaper over the long run. But this only works if A, your fridge is big enough to fit it all. It wasn't. And B, you can eat it all before it expires. Within a few weeks, half of the things that we bought would be expired. Shit. Either way, it was an important lesson to learn that buying in bulk is good, but only when you can handle it. This trip is a great example of how we've had to really scale back everything we buy so that it can be all stuffed into this tiny cooler. Yeah, it sucks, but it's better than overbuying and not being able to eat it. This next tip is going to be a bit of a hot take. Don't eat fast food ever. Unless you have to. But seriously, fast food companies have become synonymous with the idea of cheapness and savings. They always have tons of deals, dollar menu items, summer drink days, contrasting pretty hard with a dine-in restaurant experience with fixed prices on a carefully crafted menu. So when you pull into a drive-thru, you are probably thinking to yourself that the sacrifice you are taking is to your health, not your wallet. But in reality, going somewhere even as cheap as McDonald's, it ends up being bad for both. I made a worksheet with all the most common meals that Katie and I enjoy, and then priced out how much these meals cost on a per meal, per person basis. On average, every breakfast we have costs around $1.37, every lunch $1.50, and dinners $3.43. And that's meals ranging from complex with many ingredients to simple and easy. Now, an average meal for me at McDonald's, on my cheapest behavior, will run me at least $7 after tax. And that is shopping the meal deals and the dollar menu items. And that may not seem like a lot, but $7 is over double the amount of my average dinner, quadruple my average lunch, and more expensive than even the most complex, delicious meals that Katie and I will eat at home. What a ripoff. But I hear you. You want something easy, something that tastes good with little work. That's the only reason why people go to McDonald's in the first place. For me, the solution has been either KD, ramen, or good old-fashioned hot dogs. Yeah, they're bad for me, but they taste good and are all under $1, and at least my health and my wallet aren't hurting at the end of it. Now, that being said, of course I cave like everyone else does, and I have fast food from time to time. Okay, rapid fire round for eating while you are poor. Walmart, grocery outlet, and other cheap stores are your best friend and can save you money without you even knowing it. Great value in off-brand items can sometimes be exactly the same as their on-brand counterparts, but cheaper. They're especially exactly the same when it comes to vitamins and pills. Use your brains, people. No-name ibuprofen has the exact same one ingredient as Advil. Ibuprofen. Meal prep if you have the time and space for it. Budget and make spreadsheets. Even if you don't stick to it, it's good to know how much you spend. It's really hard to eat inexpensively, though. Going to the grocery store can suddenly feel like an obstacle course full of micro decisions and math equations, converting ounces to grams and searching for tiny numbers in the corner of each price tag. It sucks to have to spend your time and plan what you're going to eat for the next week. Hell, it sucks to have to pause at a rest stop while going on a road trip to eat a squished, warm ham and cheese sandwich after passing by 3 McDonald's. And this is all not to mention the mounting pressure of everything costing double what it did a few years ago. But some of it gets easier. So many people online nowadays are preaching about financial advice. People are looking everywhere for the newest way that they could hustle or invest their way into success. But being able to retain the money that you have can be just as, if not more, helpful. And the ideas I'm trying to convey in this video about groceries can also be applied to any type of consumer spending that you have in your life. While it is a lot of work that is very front-loaded, like budgeting, researching, taking extra time in the grocery store, I have found that it ends up being worth it. Thank you for watching.